Mike Metzger,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United
of the
States
United States
and the state of Indiana,
and the state of Indiana,
and that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office of
of the office of
Kosciuszko County Redevelopment Commissioner
Kosciuszko County Redevelopment Commission
according to law
according to law
and the best of my skill and ability.
and the best of my skill and ability.
Right. Thank you so much, and thank you for being willing to serve.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome aboard in an official capacity. All right. First on the agenda is approval of minutes from our last meeting, which was Monday, January 3rd, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented, or first let's start with, are there any corrections or?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented from January 3rd.
Okay, motion by Jan, second. Thank you. Second by Dan. We have rhyming names. Okay. Does anybody have any comments before we call for a vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. All right, now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Taylor Siefker. Ooh, all right. She is with Williams Design Group, and she is going to give us a brief overview of the comprehensive plan presentation that was recently given to a lot of us virtually, but she's here live now, so welcome, and I turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm live and in person today, thankfully. Let's see if I can, there we go. All right. So yeah, my name is Katie Clark. I work at Taylor Siefker Williams Design Group. We're an urban planning and design firm out of Indianapolis. And I've had the great pleasure of being the project manager for the Forward Kosciuszko County, the comprehensive planning effort. And I'm here representing kind of a wide array of team members today, from engineers on the transportation and utility side, to market analysis, kind of experts and regional advocates from MACOG. So we've been working together for a while. I appreciate you giving me the floor today. It was mentioned kind of we've been on a little planning tour lately to share some news regarding the process and make sure everybody has the opportunity to learn about what we're doing and review the material. So some things might be a little bit repetitive if you've attended a meeting recently, but we are kind of issuing a new component of the plan, so there is some new information as well. So just stick with me, and I promise you'll learn something new today. But we've spent the last probably just over a year really digging in and learning as much as we can about the county and all the local communities. We've done a lot of kind of idea and strategy development with local representatives, and now we're really nearing the end of our process and putting all the pieces together and in place and in a pretty heavy review period, which is why I'm here today to kind of share some of our findings and some of the initial plan components that are out for review. So as I said, throughout our entire process, we've really emphasized the idea of collaboration and engagement, and that's really because a comprehensive plan or any kind of community-wide strategic plan needs to kind of come from the ground up, from the people that are living and working here every day, to make sure that it's representative of what their goals for the future are, and understanding and kind of planning for what they need to be successful. So we've spent a lot of time in the communities talking with different people, holding different one-on-one interviews, small group meetings, and even broad public workshops. And as was mentioned, our last round was virtual due to a variety of reasons, but we've really had a great kind of response throughout our effort. So everything we see today has really kind of come from the community, and it's really in reaction to kind of what we've turned this comprehensive set of community conditions. So it's kind of understanding locally what the opinions and the ideas of residents and business owners are, and matching that up against what data and trends are starting to tell us. Those two together really tell us a lot, and we have a lot of information on kind of what those conditions are. But really all of our plan components seek to kind of respond to some of those or enhance some of those things as we move forward. So kind of my agenda today is really to kind of go through the plan itself. There, by the end of the week, really all the draft pieces will be available for review. But it's hard to kind of put all that out without a little bit of context. So that's really the point of some of our presentations lately, to explain kind of what things are and how we intend for them to be used, so that as people go to the website and start to review them, they start to make a little bit more sense. But to start with, as we think about kind of what a comprehensive plan is and kind of what it is for Kosciuszko County specifically, we've really thought of it as a three-pronged tool, or a three-pronged approach, and that's really to provide some guidance. It's also to provide some very strategic action recommendations, and it's to provide you, and really kind of you meaning any kind of elected official, board, all the way down to businesses and community organizations, a list of potential partners that they can kind of lean on and rely on to do some of these great efforts as we move forward. And we'll talk a little bit more about how each one of those pieces has kind of come to reality and what it consists of here in a moment. But it's important to know that at the end of the day, the plan that we refer to is really multiple plans in one. So there will certainly be kind of the county comprehensive plan that will be used by the Area Plan Commission predominantly. That will be kind of an assessment and a set of recommendations that kind of go towards the unincorporated portions of the county. But each local community, so there's 8 in total, those local towns will also get their own unique comprehensive plan. They don't have anything like this now, and it's going to be a really great tool for them moving forward, because a lot of great grant opportunities through the state and even through some federal agencies look for applicants to have a comprehensive plan that really sets in stone what those goals are and what those actions are intended to be. So they're all going to walk away with that tool, and they'll be able to use it, and it's all kind of working towards shared ideas and shared visions. So it's kind of local efforts that can kind of build up to countywide efforts and improve the lives of everybody. The 3 that are a little bit different from that are Syracuse, Warsaw, and Winona Lake. They have independent comprehensive plans just because of kind of the way those municipalities are structured. They have their own comprehensive planning documents. We are providing recommendations to them so they can then update their own plans and bring everything into alignment. So they're getting recommendations that'll just look slightly different than some of the smaller towns. So really all of our recommendations started from identifying kind of where collectively does everybody want to be. We did a lot of kind of conversations and work around this, and really kind of the big idea that bubbled up to the top is that kind of collectively, and that kind of, so the county and the local city and towns, everybody's really aspiring to become and embody and continue to be this kind of welcoming area that's full of kind of engaged, thriving residents, successful businesses and organizations. And they wanted to make sure that then you're not just kind of acting independently, but you're collectively kind of coming together to improve the lives of the residents and improve the condition of the businesses, the industries, the destinations, and the assets. So kind of above all else, everybody wanted to make sure that as you're moving forward, that you're continually creating an environment that can be successful for everybody, no matter what that success looks like. So making lives as easy and successful as possible. So that's really kind of the starting point and the foundation of all the plan's recommendations. To give a little bit more information on how do you get to that big idea, how do you make it successful for everybody, the plan really relies on 5 kind of topical themes to make sure that we're taking care of our people. We're creating kind of safe environments full of possibilities for wellness and prosperity. We're taking a look at kind of our developed places. So we want to make sure we're being kind of balanced in how we think about growth and preservation. And we're making sure that our kind of public systems, so those infrastructure and transportation, those roadway pieces, are planned effectively to make sure that we're accommodating what people and those businesses and those places need. Then we kind of added on some additional elements in terms of the great destinations and natural assets that are here to make sure that we're kind of amplifying those as much as we can and building upon those wherever we're able to. And then again, kind of relying on those partnerships, because we know no one can kind of do this work themselves. Even some of the best groups across the country can't do it themselves. So finding ways to kind of encourage and build those partnerships was really important to the group. So if we kind of start with the looking at those kind of three-pronged tools, we start with kind of the guidance piece. A comprehensive plan, that's really one of its primary roles. It's intended to be a tool to help make decisions, really, for boards like yourself, for the Area Plan Commission, really kind of any elected and appointed official or governing board can use the comprehensive plan. So there's a lot of great information that provides broad language in the terms of goals and objectives. And that broadness is intentional. It allows for kind of things to move forward in a variety of different detailed ways, depending on kind of who's spearheading an effort. But it really then focuses on recommendations for land use and transportation and utility networks, those things that kind of county and local governments can really kind of monitor and kind of control is the wrong word. The control is too strong of a word, but play a part in kind of massaging and kind of moving forward in the way that they would like it to happen. So really kind of our recommendations in that guidance piece lean heavily on the land use and development map and kind of associated narrative text. The land use plan itself was generated thanks to a lot of input from different individuals and committee groups. There's a recommendation for every property of land across the county. And we've used 12 different categories in total to kind of allow for that broad array of uses. So everything from something fairly kind of dense that may occur in kind of downtown Warsaw, all the way down to agriculture, parks and recreation, and open space. Kind of anything in between those is accommodated to allow for kind of that flexibility. But really, as we think about what's in the plan, you can look at it, but what's more important is to think about the themes and the big ideas that went into it. As we think about kind of the county-wide scale, so this is kind of the big, broad-brushed look at things, we really wanted to emphasize two things primarily, and that's the idea of preserving and then complementing or enhancing existing areas. The preservation topic really came out of a lot of public input and one-on-one interviews. And it's probably pretty obvious, but certainly finding ways as we talk about land use and development, the preservation of those natural areas and all the lakes and the kind of sensitive areas surrounding them were incredibly important to make sure that we maintained and we protected and even kind of preserved and enhanced as we thought about where development should go. I think second only to that became the topic of preserving kind of our agricultural lands. In a lot of areas, growth and development and agriculture often don't go together. Agriculture is simply a placeholder for where new development can happen. That's not the case here. Your agricultural lands are incredibly productive. They're a source of kind of culture and kind of identity for the county, but they're also really a functioning industry. So it was really working to find ways to make sure that we did not impede upon the agriculture work that was going, but also making sure we strengthened it to make sure that they felt they could grow as well. So as we think about preserving, we also wanted to kind of think about the opposite side in terms of kind of that enhancement. And to us, that became more of complementary uses. So thinking about where are the appropriate places for business growth to happen? Where are the appropriate places for industrial uses to go? And thinking about how those areas interacted with those areas we wanted to preserve. That theme kind of came through as we went through the variety of different scenarios. And then we also wanted to make sure that we were thinking about growth. There's a lot of great opportunity in terms of people that may want to live here and could live here and the businesses that may kind of follow them. So finding appropriate places for that growth to happen was incredibly important through our process as well. And that's really where we started to shift and think about the land use plan at a different scale. So there's recommendations at the county-wide map, but we also provide recommendations for each of the incorporated areas. And when we look at those, that's really where kind of the more active pieces happen. It's where we've accommodated the themes of growth and activation, because that's really kind of the centers that the group kind of came to, that we wanted to make sure we were creating these complete places for people to live and kind of recreate and be. So growth is kind of accounted for within kind of all those incorporated towns and within the city of Warsaw. We've identified what sites are feasible for residential, commercial, and even industrial development. We've looked at really where residential areas can kind of expand. So there's a huge amount of residential growth that can happen over the course of kind of the next 4 to 5 years. There's a study that supports that. So we wanted to find the places where that wanted to happen and where that could happen based on infrastructure and things like schools and parks and recreation opportunities. So those are all identified within the local plans. And then we've built upon that. If people are going to live here, we want to make sure they have places to be, places to eat and shop and even work. So we've taken a look at how we can leverage the great historic areas in terms of the small downtowns and the very unique kind of character of buildings and how we can improve upon that. And then we thought about kind of those extra amenity places that people need. So not only community facilities and buildings, but parks and open spaces, and even to some extent, additional destinations that may support kind of additional residential development. All of those are kind of accounted for in the future land use and development kind of maps and written narrative. So one of the other minimum criteria of a comprehensive plan is to think about how infrastructure systems respond to that preservation and growth of development. So infrastructure to us is roadways and then utility systems. So we split those out into those kind of appropriate topics. But when we think about roads, it was really important to us to establish kind of the function and the role of each road. You have hundreds of miles of roads, and not all of them need to have the same role and function. Some are just primarily to move cars through as quickly and efficiently as possible. But some have different opportunities potentially as you think about alternative transportation, or we heard a lot even about kind of the horse and buggies and where they should go and how we can accommodate them a little bit better. We also thought a lot about kind of the maintenance and how we can modernize some of these systems and areas, but then to make sure we were accommodating for improvements to take care of that growth and in areas where we wanted kind of new things to happen, how we could support that through roadways and utility systems. Then kind of the one piece that really kind of came out of the planning process itself was to create kind of a plan and set of recommendations for countywide and local connections and how we can use those connections to enhance destinations. I think in every meeting we've had so far, the ideal of trails and connectivity has come up in some way or the other. So it's really kind of surfaced as a priority topic for people kind of in all areas and within all different kind of roles and responsibilities. So there is a countywide connections plan as a part of it with kind of supporting recommendations, but the primary idea is to really think strategically about how you can connect each local community to one another and connect those communities to the great destinations and locations that are found throughout the county. So it certainly also promotes kind of the preservation of waterways. You saw kind of the big blue line that ran right through the middle. That's our recommendation of using kind of the river corridor to create a pathway and create even one of those maybe new regional destinations that people could take advantage of while educating and preserving that kind of riparian environment. But then finding ways locally to use connectivity and destinations to really enhance local culture, local history, and that can be done through wayfinding and informational signage. So it's really kind of a new initiative about kind of connecting everyone to one another that may take a while to kind of realize, but it's important to kind of start with a big idea and move from there. Which really is a great segue to kind of the new piece of the plan that will be kind of pushed out to the public later this week. In addition to kind of what everyone wanted to be, the other kind of shared aspiration or big idea that came forward was that really everyone that we talked to understood that they themselves as an individual or as a business owner, as a member of a community board, understood that there were going to need to be some actions taken. We couldn't just sit back and watch all this happen and kind of reap the benefits later. But everybody knew that collectively they could come together in a very unique way to make sure that some of this change happens and that we're creating that thriving community that we want to see moving forward. So that really brings us to kind of the second prong of our toolbox there, and it's really all about the actions. So this is really kind of the section that really gets into the details of things that are both realistic but also very actionable that that you can kind of create a plan, create kind of a set of steps to move forward with that would make improvements and transformation from anything from zoning and more regulation or policy to improving quality of life amenities like parks and recreation space or trails. So there's a lot of kind of leeway in between, and we've tried to kind of catalog as many efforts and initiatives as we can. So what we're going to kind of push out and seek kind of input and review on are a series of strategic action plans. Currently, we're at over 500 efforts. Kind of they're a mix of capital improvement projects and more community kind of minded initiatives. But they're really all within the realm of county or local government or county or local staff. We tried to take out those that may be led by more of a private partner or more of a community organization. We wanted to make sure we were being very deliberate in what we put forward. But the information is organized by local community. So again, everybody will get their own unique list of what they should be focusing on moving forward. But we've cataloged really maintenance pieces, modernization pieces, as well as improvements. And done that in a way that we've kind of timelined them out in 5-year increments so you can start to see when things might start to fall. And hopefully it's just a really great set of tools that can be used as you start to think about budgets and think about actions and how priorities might want to move forward. There's also kind of general cost expectations as a part of all of them. They're not intended to be a promise of what a project will cost. I have not come to the point in my career where I can do that yet, maybe one day. But they're really just intended to be a ballpark estimate that as you start to see what might become a priority, you have a general idea of what the effort may take so you can plan appropriately. But to pair with that, we've also listed financial resources. So if there's entities or programs that you could reach out to share in some of the cost or the funding of that, we've done our best to allocate that because, again, we don't want you to have to feel like you're doing all of this work alone. So the projects themselves, really quickly, they deal with a lot of different topics. So we start with kind of administrative actions. There's a lot of kind of zoning updates and policies to make sure that we're being as strong as we can and using the comprehensive plan as an input to that to make sure that there's a little bit of teeth, so to speak, that on the regulatory side you can lean on to make sure you're implementing the plan to the best of your ability. There's also some information on staffing and community support. Within the local communities, there's a really wide array of different things from like a book sharing program as the start of potentially a library to food pantries. Also is kind of expanding community programs within existing kind of community centers. Improvements to parks and recreation space, anything from a small shelter to a dog park. Every community is just a little bit different in what they need and what they want. But then we certainly put kind of emphasis on the development side and what could be done in terms of, again, focusing on what a county or a board could do, but thinking about how could a downtown facade improvement program work in some of these communities? What would they need? How would that function, and how could it be kind of shared and educated on to make sure everybody is aware of the program? And then we certainly probably a lot, I would say maybe the majority of the projects deal with the utility and the roadside. A lot of the local towns have done an incredible job of maintaining the systems that they have, and so we just want to make sure we're putting in place tools that they can continue to do that, continue to kind of plan for things like water tower painting and modernization of their stormwater and sewer systems. And then we've paired that with, as I said, I think you might be like 4th in the state in counties road lengthwise. You have many. And so we wanted to make sure that over the course of, in those 5-year increments, you're starting to plan for not only just maintenance, that's going to be a huge piece of it, but what roads may need some really strategic improvements to accommodate growth. So all of that's included in the local and the countywide action plan. I can look it up. I think you're ranked 4th in terms of county size in the state of having the most roads. Okay. You're near the top. If maybe 4 is wrong, you're near the top.
Just to segue into that, if you laid every inch of our roadway in Kosciuszko County end to end, you could go from here to Maine.
There you go. You've got a lot. But we didn't want to stop at just giving you a list of 500 things that you may want to consider. We wanted to narrow that down to what is the most useful in the short term? Where can your actions have the biggest impact now as you start to think about some of these bigger efforts? So we created the short-term priority action plan that's really geared towards the county itself. And the short-term actions really are intended to do a couple different things in terms of informing future efforts to make them a little bit more kind of understand what would need to go into some of that, and really kind of help with the planning and programming of things as you move forward. So there's a lot of things that need just a little bit more study, so some of those kind of play into it. But really, while a nominal kind of investment may be needed for some of them, we've really tried to be deliberate in what we put forward as a priority and make sure it could be easily accommodated. So it's not something that's going to need millions and millions of dollars. It's something that could either be accounted for in maybe a yearly budgeting process or could be kind of absorbed under someone's current role and just kind of adding one task to what they're doing without overworking them or kind of making it outside of the realm of possibilities. So we've really narrowed it down to 5 key steps moving forward in this short-term plan. And it's really geared towards kind of going back to those big themes of the people, places, systems, destinations, and partnership. So we start with kind of the idea of capacity. We heard throughout kind of our process and through conversations with the local towns that they have so many great ideas. They want to kind of do so many things, but they're just really limited on the staff that they have. And the staff that they do have are amazing, but running the town and making sure the town stays kind of in compliance and they're doing all those things, that's their full-time job. So adding one more thing is difficult. So you have a great start on this action item, and we kind of started verbalizing and brainstorming what this additional capacity could be in the terms of how the county could assist, and lo and behold, the state of Indiana issued the HELP program, and it's really doing just that. It created an opportunity for a community coordinator to really kind of be the assistant, so to speak, to some of these local towns, leaders and staff. So our hope is that that process goes very well, and through that process, you're able to find ways to continue that effort moving forward, to give these local advocates just some additional technical expertise, as well as some additional kind of manpower to move forward with grants and move forward with those great ideas that they have. We also heard a lot about enforcement and development standards. And certainly as a part of the comprehensive plan, there's a lot of, I won't say new ideas, but ideas that may need some additional adjustments in the terms of how zoning is used to move forward. So a comprehensive plan is not a zoning tool in itself. It's not a regulatory document, but it can inform some of those updates. And so we did hear a lot about things that may need to be adjusted to accommodate new housing product, as an example, smaller footprint, smaller structure, square footage, as well as thinking about ways we maybe want to hit that preservation topic again and thinking about shorelines and what would be allowed and what's not allowed. So we make recommendations on how to improve some of that, and then potentially how to kind of improve enforcement of what those standards could be. We also spend kind of an effort around transportation, specifically regarding the US 30 corridor. There is information in the plan about how to respond to the corridor. We know that it's kind of an in-progress effort, and a lot of thought has gone into it of what the city and the towns and the county would like to see. But we wanted to make sure that that ongoing effort and that ongoing coordination was really advocated for as a part of the plan. So our recommendation in the short term is to be as kind of the best participant you can be and work alongside NDOT and their teams to make sure that you're sharing what you want to see and what the local communities want to see for themselves and what they're concerned about. And then certainly once that process is done, participate in kind of an update to the comprehensive plan to make sure that kind of everything is accurately tracked and you're responding accordingly to what the final design decision is. Connectivity, we talked about, this is probably one of the bigger areas of short-term action items, and it's really to start to organize yourself in a way that you can make proactive decisions in the terms of trail additions, trail enhancements, and creating those kind of local and cross-county connectivity opportunities. So That really includes the consideration of forming a parks board at the county level. You do not have one, and that is your best opportunity for getting state and even federal funds. Having that kind of organization body, even in a very simple form, will really kind of move you forward in this effort. And then once that's complete, undertake kind of an abbreviated study to better understand really what are the needs that we're trying to solve. Where could new park space go? Where are the best roads or alignments for trails? Because that will really inform kind of your strategic investment. Which comes to kind of our last piece. So we've cataloged a number of projects, as I said, and we've kind of proposed a variety of studies to add even more projects to those. But really, to make the action plan as useful as possible, it's going to take kind of one additional quick follow-on effort to better understand at a county level, what could be allocated on a yearly basis, or even a 5-year increment? What could be allocated, and within those set of funds, what would our priorities be? That's really the best way to use those action plans, and it's just a level of information and detail that we could not get to at this point because we were so busy coming up with the great big ideas of what we wanted to do. So kind of an additional effort of looking strategically at that investment piece and how dollars might actually flow in terms of what the county or local municipalities could provide and how that even could pair with state or federal funds would be kind of the next best step to inform kind of decision-making moving forward. So to kind of wrap up, we have had a round of recent meetings. As I said, I've been on a little bit of a publicity tour for the comprehensive plan. But really everything we've done throughout the month of February and even today is really to get individuals oriented to everything that we have available and to really promote the public review of those pieces before we move into adoption. So the best way to do that, if you have not been to the project website, very cleanly on the homepage, there's two different options to get to the material. You can either go to the top or the participate in the public review in the middle. It will take you through a guided tour of all of our recommendation pieces. And like I said, that action plan will be added probably by the end of the week, so you'll be able to see that in greater detail as well. But there's not only the guided tour, but there's a form and a couple different ways that you can send us feedback. So if there's something you see that is concerning, we'd love to know. If there's something that you love, we like to know that too. Positive feedback is just as helpful as things that we maybe want to change or consider adjusting. As we move forward, as I mentioned at the very beginning, we are nearing the end of the process. We're still kind of easy. It's easy to adjust things if we need to, so don't take these next steps as we're done. But we did need to plan for kind of the final steps of the process. So right now, tentatively, we're planning on starting our adoption next month in April. And that starts with a presentation to the Area Plan Commission. And as a part of that, we'll kind of do an additional overview of everything, and there will be a formal kind of final public review of the plan. That will be announced kind of at that April meeting. And then as we move into May, we'll take public comment through April, but hopefully by May, we get to the point where the Area Plan Commission at their meeting can make their approval for recommendation. And basically what that body does is give hopefully a favorable recommendation and send it to the commissioners for their final review, which we hope will happen at their second May meeting. Following those steps, the plan, the local kind of portion of the plan will go to each town and it will be adopted as well. And we hope to get all of that completed by about June or July. And then everyone can start implementation. So I'm happy to take any questions if you have them. Otherwise, I really appreciate you inviting me to speak. All input is good input, so we look forward to what you have to say.
Katie, thank you very much for agreeing to attend and give us an overview. I just have a question. Just after your name, you have letters, FASLA and PLA. Would you like to tell us what that means?
Yes, so the FASLA is our National Organization of Landscape Architects. So by training and education, I'm actually a landscape architect. By career, I've morphed into a planner and working with communities, but ASLA is our national organization, and the F is a designated that I'm a fellow of the organization. So it's one of the higher honors for members. And then the PLA is I'm a professional landscape architect. So I have my license. I can sign and stamp drawings and take on responsibility. So.
All right. And have you met you two have met? Okay.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
I've got our list of things to do. We're good.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Overwhelmed with information?
It's a lot. It is a lot. I know.
Go ahead, Doug.
No, I was just gonna say, this is my first exposure to it, which I'm thrilled. I'm a graduate of the Kosciuszko Leadership Academy from, 3 years ago? And so there was talk about all of this, and so I'm thrilled that it actually came to fruition. Didn't know we had a website.
I'm sad that you didn't know. I apologize. We've done our best to get it out in front of everybody,
I'm
but
not on
I'm glad you
social media.
know about it now.
That's it.
Yes. So was it through social media that you promoted it, or how was it?
Newspapers also.
Yeah, so we've done it a couple different ways. When we started
admitted that.
early last year, we formed a outreach committee. So there's representatives from a variety of organizations and businesses, and we kind of charged them with helping build our outward communication. So anything we've done, we've run through that committee in as the project, we have a Facebook page as well as the website, but we've tried to share things not only through those, but through the committee, get it in front of news agencies, the newspaper, as well as different newsletter groups. It's found its way to HOA organizations, lake conservation organizations, and so it's making its way some ways. I'm sorry it didn't make it to
No,
you.
I'm sure it's me. I'm sure it's not the effort that was made to communicate that. So just selfishly, I'd love to ask, were there any surprises? Were there any significant developments that came from this? And I'm sure if I spent time on the website and whatnot.
I would say one of the bigger happy surprises has been in the connectivity and the recreation piece. Just seeing as consultants and as we did the inventory, we could look and see where park spaces were, and we understood that in terms of how boards and things work, there were maybe things that you don't have that some places do. Not that it's good or bad, but what we were surprised and excited by is that when we went to the one-on-one meetings and the small group meetings, and even the public meetings, the desire for connectivity, and not just at a local level in terms of sidewalks and trails, but the fact that people wanted to get from Milford to Syracuse on a bike in a safe way, or that was surprising. Just because sometimes people think locally, they know that can happen there, but the fact that people kind of dreamed a bigger dream, and then that I think in some the different levels of county government have seen the support and are interested in finding ways to move that forward. I think, I'm not promising again anything, but I think some of those ideas will be able to kind of continue, which has been that happy accident.
Yeah,
so.
super. Good, thank you.
Okay.
Nope, Anna has a question.
I'm in North Webster, and we're working on a bike trail from Webster to Syracuse and working with them. But I really like that we always say our dream after that's done is to follow the river as much as possible and go to Warsaw, and you had that in there. I like that.
Yeah, and that idea came out of, again, we had a land use and development workshop where we had people come together just to play with stickers and drawings, and that was one of the ideas that came out. Like, what would happen if, because one of the rules that we went into with that workshop is don't feel constrained by anything. It could be the craziest idea and it's okay, and that's, people started to draw that, and how if you were to do, whether it be a waterway trail or, a trail on the land, what would that mean in terms of development? How could you then kind of spur different things? So that idea really kind of came out of the community dialogue and the support. So I'm glad you liked it.
Again, thank you so
you
much
for having me.
for joining us today, Katie. I really appreciate this, and I will see you again this evening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Act surprised when you see it.
Great segue will be to introduce our help grant new person. Could you introduce yourself? And this was an idea that came from the actual beginning of this Forward Kosciuszko, because our small communities and towns stated over and over again that they would love to be able to do things, but they had no funding or no time or skill or knowledge in how to get those funds. So the commissioners and the council agreed that we would, through the grant and through our own funding, hire you and help those smaller communities out. So,
Yes. My name is Amy Rowe, and actually went to Grace College and did my first 2 careers here in Kosciuszko County, then went to South Carolina, hey Jeremy, and then got dragged back to Indiana, to my hometown of Rochester, in which I worked for the chamber there and also the auditor's office, and learned enough to be dangerous, know that she has a really hard job. And then after that, I was looking for additional opportunities. Actually had interviewed at the state for the position, did not end up getting that, got a better position. So, because I am able to do things for a place that I'm familiar with and love as much as my own community. The whole project is new, so it is interesting to be a part of. The state of Indiana had the Stellars community whole program there, and then due to COVID, created this Help Hoosier Enduring Legacy program. And so purpose behind it is really twofold, like Joni said, to build the capacity and planning, and then also to have a legacy project. And so the building capacity and planning part is where we're at. Everything is nebulous because they're learning as I'm learning, so I'm a guinea pig to their guinea pig. But it's been really neat. In the last 6 weeks, my purpose has been to meet with folks and understand what Kosciuszko County has been doing. So I've learned and gotten a doctorate, I feel like, in Kosciuszko County. I thought I knew everything when I went to Grace College, but that was a lie. I knew about this much. So that's been really neat. And so this month will really be focused on one of 2 things. The one part, which is kind of an interesting thing and a first piece with these smaller communities, is an arts-infused planning event. And y'all ask me what that is, and nobody really knows, but we're working the details. It's basically to help build that capacity in these smaller communities to dream big. So instead of using our left brain, we're asking these communities to use their right brain to be able to really dream big. What would it look like if your community could be what you wanted it to be? Like, what would that look like? And using a tool, arts, to be able to help bring that out. So Pearson, Etna Green, Milford, and Mentone will all have an event. Spoonful of Imagination is the arts organization I will be working with. I meet with them on Friday to discuss what the details are about that. And then the second thing this month is we have an advisory core team that we will be putting a meeting together to create there's 4 pathway committees, and don't quote me on those because those I'm still learning. But those core team members will help me to choose 7 to 10 people for each of those 4 committees. And through that, we will then begin the work of projects, using this Forward Kosciuszko plan and other pieces to start moving forward those legacy projects. So that's probably enough information. It's at high level. If you would like to know more, please feel free. I've seen and met many of you in meetings, so if you want to know any more information, feel free to reach out to me. So
Thank you.
It's an honor to be here.
thank you. All right, and now Alan Teo from KEDCO. If you're ready to share your KEDCO update.
All right. Hey, thank you all for the opportunity, and just a few things to share. I guess 2 points, though, to begin. I do want to make sure to mention, we really can draw a straight line from the hometown chats the Community Foundation helped to put together a few years ago to the housing strategy we put together, which led to our housing initiative, which has helped us get to the comprehensive planning effort, and now having, being ready to be able to pursue the HELP program. To be one of 3 communities around the state chosen for this first round of this brand new program. I think ours is the most ambitious proposal of all the HELP groups that are working on it. I mean, Jay County is one, the City of Auburn's the other, and we have Kosciuszko County and 4 of our towns. So we're setting the bar high. We know we can really do great things here. And I love the analogy of dreaming, a bit bigger about what's possible. And then just to reinforce around some of these efforts, even things like housing and blueways and greenways, of the 4 towns we're working with on the HELP program, 2 of them do have their own redevelopment commissions, but 2 don't. To where this commission could be active in Etna Green and Mentone, helping them if they identify projects to work on that would be appropriate to have a redevelopment function. You all could support their efforts in really helping us accelerate what we can do together. So again, just a couple points. A few things to share. One on housing. I do want to just make sure we reinforce that we're actively working throughout the county with a number of different communities to build a pipeline of sites we're looking at for housing development, sites we're helping communities evaluate, finding builders, finding developers, really build, again, a pipeline of activity. We know the market is producing a certain level of housing. We know the market has potential to support more. So our job is to fill that gap. And so I know there will be at least 1 or 2 or more opportunities where a community may want to look at something like the residential TIF, which is a new tool, that it would be, this commission would be the one to be asked to help the community work through that either in an unincorporated area of the county or in a community, again, of which there are a number that do not have their own redevelopment commissions. Nothing specific today, but just do want to make sure that to build awareness that we are moving those directions. And beyond housing, I know we talked at the last meeting about industrial park development and doing some shovel-ready, kind of, I'll call it due diligence, some of the detective work. We are continuing to see interest that, opportunities that either, companies that are contacting the state of Indiana, that are contacting our regional group, the regional partnership, or contacting us directly, as well as you might think those are all companies from out of the area, but even companies here that do want to grow in our community in Kosciuszko County. And there's no buildings, and there's very few sites that are ready for development. And so I realize there's a lot of things happening in the world right now, so I don't want to promise that this is all just to meet the demand we see today. But as we really think about how we want to position this county for the next 5 or 10 years, spending some time this year, and I know there's a focus around where are the sites, where are the areas of the county, even within the existing TIF areas, where do we want to prioritize? Can't do it all. But where do we want to prioritize and begin to put some effort toward, if it's site development or, working toward having spec buildings, that we have a supply to where we have those inquiries of anybody needing from 5 or 10 or 20,000 square feet up to 50 to 100,000 square feet, that we have inventory ready to go. Unfortunately, because of the way things are right now, it does take quite a while to put a building up, both because of just the mechanics of putting up buildings as well as availability of all the raw materials and the labor to where if it's going to take a company, 2 years to get a new building put up in Kosciuszko County because it's, start to finish what you're looking at, they can just as easily find a building 50 to 100 miles away that is ready. I mean, they might really like us as a community. They might really like what we have to offer, but they may have to make a decision. And again, there's nobody saying this to me today, so I'm not trying to put the fear in anybody's minds, but those are some of the considerations. So those are a couple updates from KEDCO, and I just, again, want to help with any questions.
Just a quick question for you. You said that you receive interest inquiries from local and then regional and state. Were those the 3 you touched
Yes,
on?
ma'am.
Which would you say is the heaviest? Where is the most interest coming from of those 3?
The local and then maybe the regional.
Okay.
I mean, the state level, they're looking most times around the state, and they're probably looking at other states, right? So, I mean, not only do we have the highest, say, batting average when it's local to regional, but also those are the most realistic, best fit for what we have to offer.
Okay, thank you. That's
Of course.
helpful.
Yep.
All right. Thank you
Ellen.
very much. Go ahead.
Alan, you said that 2 years start to finish. If all of the preliminary work were done, so shovel-ready, what would that time frame be?
I mean, you're going to take at least, 6 to 12 months out of that. So maybe you got a year to be indoors and then be able to get your equipment set up, et cetera, if you have a business. But you're going to save at least 6 to 12 months. And that's a big deal, right? So,
Yeah, okay. Yep, good, thank you.
of course.
And hopefully the construction and product price will drop in that interim. Right now, it's almost unaffordable to build anything, so. Cool off,
there we
okay.
go.
Is that a
I
better
don't think it's
word?
going to drop. Yes,
Regulate,
no.
yeah. And hey, we just want to make sure we're competitive, that we don't miss opportunities, especially if it's opportunities to support companies either that are already here, that want to grow here, or that would be really fit well with what we have to offer. So,
Thank you. Thank you
thank
very
you.
much.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Moving on, it's now time to talk about Baker Tilly. Michelle and I have talked a little bit about this, but basically, we do not have an engagement letter or a scope of services agreement with Baker Tilly, which we found out surprisingly when we received an invoice. If those of you remember, Baker Tilly came twice and did presentations, one virtual and one in person, and they invoiced us for those over a year after, which Michelle and I negotiated with them and explained that that is unacceptable, that if we're going to be charged, one, we would like to know in advance. Two, we would like to know costs up front before that ever happens. And three, we expect to be billed in a timely manner. We did get the invoice reduced in half, which I thought was pretty good. Would have been really nice if they had said that they would forgive all of it, but that didn't happen. But they did then also want to do a letter, an engagement letter agreement and a scope of services agreement. Now, I'd like to explain that their level of providing services is very different than having an attorney on the Redevelopment Commission. Their level would be looking at things like TIF districts and how they would actually do the groundwork for creating or enlarging, that's not the right word, growing, expanding, thank you, expanding a TIF district. Their expertise area is in those type of things. And they are very, very knowledgeable. Michelle has a lot of faith in them. They are very professional. They're very good. I know that a lot of people use them, and we did not want to burn that bridge. We did not want to do anything to harm that mutually satisfactory relationship with them, because in the future, we may need them if we choose to do certain things. So, that being said, I hope you have had a chance to look over the engagement letter agreement. We'll start with that. And hopefully, someone will make a motion to approve the engagement letter agreement with Baker Tilly.
I'll make a motion that we accept.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we have a scope of services agreement. And in this document, they just basically explain that they will be charging us. And again, we hopefully explained that we want to know in advance at least a good estimate of what those charges may end up being. So with that being said, I would entertain a motion to approve the scope of services agreement.
I'll make a motion to.
Thank you. Second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. All right, and then thirdly, we have the invoice, which has been reduced in half. It is now $4,250. It started out at $8,500. And I would entertain a motion to approve this, but we need to have a discussion first on where we will get the funding to approve it. This money can come from the TIF districts. These presentations were about TIF districts and what that process is and what that process looks like. We specifically asked them about expanding the Louis Dreyfus TIF area. That was one of the questions. We have an option, I believe, and Michelle's going to correct me if I misstate this, we have an option to spread it over all of our TIF districts with positive balances. We have an option to do it by percentage of their total, or we have an option to do it by a flat rate per TIF district. So I would entertain some conversation on this topic, and what do you think we should do?
My recommendation is that we would divide the total evenly between the 5 TIF districts that have a positive balance, because of the fact that, at this point anyways, the services that Baker Tilly will provide would be countywide. And I don't think it would be fair to prorate this based on the size of their accrued balance simply because they have a collected balance larger than another TIF district. So
Okay,
I believe that'd be, 1,250 to each of the 5 districts with a positive balance.
okay.
Well, and I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say-
That amount is with the other engagement that we'll be discussing in a moment.
Right, okay. Okay, we'll just leave it at 5 equally distributed across. Okay. Anybody else, comments? Thoughts? Huh? Okay, so would you like to make that a motion?
I would like to make that a motion.
Okay, so I have a motion to spread the cost of the $4,250 invoice for Baker Tilly services evenly over the 5 TIF districts with a positive balance.
I believe I'm adding to or amending to. We also then did say that we would want to put on file that the 2 that have balances owed, if there are future expenses, that we would essentially have an IOU on those 2 TIF districts, which is True Point and the Dreyfus, so that when they are able to contribute, that they would then make up for the contribution that they cannot participate with now. That's a really long motion.
That was a long motion. And Louis Dreyfus has both a positive and a bond, correct? They have one of each.
Okay, so this is the Dreyfus 4921.
Okay, so we'll specify that. All right, that's included in his motion. Do you want me to restate that? Please say no. Look at, Jeremy starts laughing. That's good. No, I don't need to? Thank you. Bless your heart. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second on this motion? Thank you. All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right, next. We had talked at previous meetings about retaining an attorney for the Development Commission. And we have now received an attorney retainment letter from Adam Turner, and I did do my due diligence and talk to other attorneys in our area, and came back with basically glowing recommendations for Adam and his knowledge of this area and his knowledge of both city and county government, which is very important. And did not find anyone that felt compelled or qualified to submit a bid or a letter of retainment. So with that, Adam has requested a retainment fee of $2,000, which includes and covers him attending redevelopment commission meetings for the rest of the calendar year. So I would entertain a motion. Well, first, do we want to have some discussion, or?
I glanced at the retainment letter. I apologize. At one point, we were meeting quarterly, then we moved to monthly, and now we're every other month.
Correct, bi-monthly.
Okay. So if we were to change our frequency, would that change the engagement?
It would.
Okay.
I mean, I can tell you that without looking
Well,
at it. It
I
would.
would assume that. So, I mean,
Yes.
we're not anticipating a change in the frequency of our meetings, but,
Not right now. We're
Okay.
not, that I know of.
right.
I don't see any, as Alan so eloquently stated, some of these things are going to take a long time to do. And I think that to do our due diligence and to research projects or to make decisions will take a while. So I'd say it's my intention to stay on a bi-monthly.
Okay.
So if we had to have a special meeting for some odd reason, he would just be on a hourly billable.
Correct.
Okay.
Which is also spelled out in the retainment letter.
At $200 an hour. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Which is less than his regular fee.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the engagement letter for Turner and Valentine.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the letter of agreement. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Now, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? All right. Would you like to join us up here, Mr. Attorney? Nothing like putting you on the hot seat. Okay, then the next question becomes, how will we pay him for this? Again, we can do the same type of arrangement. I want to explain that if we were to see if we could fund this or anything else out of county general, that would require going before the Kosciuszko County Council and asking for money to do so in the form of an additional appropriation. Okay. I'm looking at my answer lady here. Yes. Okay, so
So
that,
the other, and
yes, please.
yeah, so the
Absolutely.
other option would be then, at some point, is to ask the county to create a small operating budget for the redevelopment commission for purposes such as this. But that would be at a future time. Michelle, do you have something you're gonna?
Yes, she does. I
I
can tell.
do, I do. So we have 5 different funds that are TIF funds that have cash balances. So to spend any of those dollars, we would need appropriation. So not just if it's funded by county general, but if it's funded out of these dollars, it should be appropriated as well. So as part of this discussion, and you've already made the determination that we would split those bills between the 5, you would just need to figure out what your comfort level is as far as your maximum amount that you would want to appropriate for this year, for '22. And then we would do the paperwork and take to council for approval. And then once we enter our budget cycle for '23, those would be included in our budget cycle, so we would not have to have that special additional appropriation meeting.
Okay, so we have to have an additional appropriation approved by the council
Yes.
for redevelopment commission funds also.
And specific to
Clarifying.
each TIF, correct?
Yes.
Yes. She's really good at doing that kind of paperwork for us.
Well, the reason why I
Yes.
asked that is because
Yes.
Alan has been before the redevelopment commission asking for funds in an effort to provide some of the shovel-ready sites. The question that we still need answered from Alan is, are there locations that they've already identified that are adjacent to or included in any existing TIF districts? If that were the case, then if you're going to go before the county council, then we may want to consider asking now, but we don't know what those sites are, so it's premature. Okay, all right.
I think we need to wait until we have some more specific, concrete data,
Agreed. We just need to make sure that Alan knows that we're waiting on that, right?
which I think he is aware. Alan's walking a fine line between what publicly can be stated. What you don't want to do is create any type of a rumor or any type of expectation for a company, whether we're talking anything from retail to manufacturing to a housing unit being created here that may not go through. Because there are a lot of things, a lot of baby steps that have to happen. And I understand his hesitation, but I also, and I think he did a good job today of being a little more specific in what he reports to us. But I would say that those type of additional appropriations, if we need to do those, would be down the road.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So is next year when we could ask for a small budget?
Well, what you would do is the additional appropriation is a small budget
Okay.
that you will have access to in '22. And I would just suggest, since we are still pretty early in the year, to ask for enough that you have a bit of a cushion. So if we do have special meetings or do enter into a project, you have it covered at this time. Because if it's time sensitive, as far as how you're needing to utilize those dollars, the additional appropriation process takes about 4 to 6 weeks to do, because we have to advertise it and then it has to be approved by council.
Okay. Well, that certainly makes sense.
Yeah, and whatever that amount is, whatever direction you give me is what I'll advertise and then place on that council's agenda.
So it won't happen tonight. She has to have 48 hours to advertise it, so, okay, so we know that we're expending at least
$6,250.
$50. So what would you feel comfortable? Does anybody have any comments or? I think we
You wanna weigh
should,
in on this, Adam?
yes, Adam,
It's kind of a
please.
funny thing working for governmental entities because I know what all their budgets are for my services, and this includes with the other departments of the county too. But so it kind of makes it a little awkward. But from my vantage point, it's all just the scale and scope of how many projects you see coming up, right? I mean, as far as my fees are good there for a while, but then if you send me, you know, at every meeting, you're sending me out to do X, Y, and Z, that's gonna start incurring additional costs. So that, it's a tough thing to say. I, you know, maybe ask for a little bit more than that, but then I think you go back to, reverting. I know it's a 4 to 6 week process, but, you know, sometimes government's supposed to be a little bit slow, right? For making sure that things are done correctly and things are done, thoroughly. So things that, you know, Alan may have come up, maybe focus more on those being more, you know, appropriation, project-specific appropriations, rather than, you know, budgeted appropriations for the year. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So hypothetically, if we asked for 10,000, but we don't have any additional expenses this year, those funds are still going to be appropriated to the respective TIFs, correct?
I'm doing what I tell people to do, and I'll only speak in front of the microphone. So I am on record. Yes, so whatever appropriation is not used will stay within that fund. So if we appropriate, let's say, $5,000 in each one of these TIF districts, and you spend $1,000 in each one, that $4,000 cash will stay in that TIF fund specifically in that balance. The appropriation will dissolve, and then for '23, when you submit that budget, we'll appropriate those dollars to spend again.
Again, okay.
Yes. So
it's not a
all cash will
carryover, it
always
just
stay,
dissolves.
Yeah,
yes,
it never
within,
carries over.
within these specific TIF funds.
Unfortunately, they don't carry over.
Well, oh, no, that's all right
Yeah.
with me. I was just thinking then, it would seem to me that you would factor a little bit higher if it doesn't cause heartache or heartburn to do that, because it just dissolves if we don't use it. I mean, I'm not in a hurry to,
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know if I would use the word dissolve. I'd just say it just stays in.
It just
that
stays
account.
there
Yeah, it
and we
continues
start
to
all over.
accrue with all the other.
It doesn't
TIF
change
money
the balance,
generated.
it doesn't
Right.
change the
Right.
balance of
Balance
each
on that
respective TIF.
Yeah, yeah.
Correct.
the
So-
TIF isn't penalized or
No.
there's nothing, it just stays there.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
This is just government accounting.
But it does require council approval.
It does.
Right.
yes.
So if we went to the council and we said we want to have $1 million, I'm going to tell you that they're going to say no, because we probably don't have $1 million sitting in our funds.
Yeah, and you don't have the cash balance to support that.
Right.
That is correct.
And they also are conservative, and, which is good, because it's not our money, it's taxpayer money, so.
Well, again, the total of the 6,250, if allocated to the five TIF districts, that's 1,250 per TIF district. So if we were to say 2,500 per TIF, or the other example of 5,000 per TIF, I would support either of those. Again, if we don't have a use for it, the cash balance is unchanged. but it would probably allow us to be a little bit more nimble and responsive if we had. So I think I've made every other first motion, so I'll let somebody else make a first motion.
Okay, well, all right, or we continue the discussion.
Of course.
So if we did 5,000, that would give us 25,000, and we've already allocated 6,250 of that minimum. I'm just restating.
As a representative of council,
Hello.
hello, does that seem like a reasonable action taken by the redevelopment commission? If that's a fair question.
It's a fair question, and I suppose if I was putting on my council hat right now, I would say, I want to know what you're specifically going to do with this money. To say that you're going to allocate it for a future project, I would say, what's your future project? Now, if you were going to, I'm telling you, this is my council hat, not my redevelopment commission hat, but if you were to come to me and say that you wanted $10,000, you have already incurred expenses of $6,250, and you want a little bit of a cushion in case we need to require our attorney or Baker Tilly to do something further, I would be much more comfortable approving that additional appropriation. Again, that's my personal thoughts. And it takes 4 of us to do anything on the council.
So if we did 2,500 per TIF district, that would give us 12,500, of which we've spent half of, essentially. So I don't want to discourage discussion, but I'm going to go ahead and make the first motion.
Okay.
That's a good one.
That we would allocate $2,500 per each TIF district that has a positive balance, giving us a current operating budget of $12,500, of which $6,250 has already been allocated.
Okay. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thanks. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, Michelle, you can work your magic now. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, now, we do need to first welcome aboard. Appreciate you being here. Our TIF review, in accordance with ICC 36-7-25-8, we are required to present information on TIF districts, and this time it is 30 West and Dreyfus. And to look at what we have approved, or what we had indicated in the past. One, on 30 West, budget is for minimal money for council approval on expenditures for future projects. Long-term plan for this allocation area is US 30 and housing, and the impact of this allocation area on the overlapping taxing units. And those taxing units are Tiff, Etna, Prairie, Plain, Wayne, and Harrison. Taxing entities are the County Solid Waste District, Etna Township, Triton Schools, Prairie Township, Plain Township, Wayne Township, City of Warsaw Fire Territory, the Warsaw Library, Warsaw Schools, Harrison Township, Bell Memorial Public Library, and Tippecanoe Valley Schools. And I would be happy, I will forward this information to everyone after this. Should have probably this morning, but ran out of time. So, yeah. Okay, so does anyone want to amend, correct, or change what our long-term plans are for that? Do we want to look at US 30 housing and possible infrastructure? If things were to go west on 30, there would definitely be some infrastructure needs. There is no sewer. once you get past the industrial development,
So that would just be amending our answer.
adding the word
Adding the word
and
infrastructure.
infrastructure. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay. Everybody in agreement with that? Do we need to make a motion on that, or just, yes, we do, okay. So,
So I'll make a motion to accept the three answers as presented, but with the addition of infrastructure.
right. So the long-term plan allocation would be for US 30, housing, potential housing and potential infrastructure. Can we put potential in there? Good. Potential housing development and potential infrastructure. Okay, I need a second. I'll entertain a second. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? All right. Next one, Louis Dreyfus. That one, in the past, we have said, the first one's already spelled out for you. The budget for minimal money for council approval on expenditures for future projects. As far as long-term plans, previously we had stated road infrastructure and housing, and then the impact on overlapping taxing units. It explains that those are Etna, Prairie, Plain, Wayne, and Harrison. Whoops, sorry, wrong one. It's TIF and Clay. And then the taxing entities, again, the county, solid waste district, Clay Township, and Warsaw Schools. So on that one, do we want to make any changes to our TIF district statements? I mean,
Jeremy, do you feel like that encompasses what we should be considering out there with any future expansions?
you have to talk in the mic, sir.
Sorry, thank you. I think the main thing we would need for future expansion is road.
Okay.
County Road 800 would be the biggest issue,
Okay.
because we would need an entrance over there.
Okay, do roads necessarily mean infrastructure with it?
Roads are infrastructure,
Okay, but we've specified roads, not
Roads.
infrastructure.
right?
But I didn't know, are we moving utility lines? Are we,
We've done that more than once.
so I'm just wondering if the fact that we're saying roads is too narrow. Infrastructure.
Okay. So we are saying infrastructure and potential housing development?
Yeah, I would conclude that, just because I think that could wrap into something that we might be looking at down in that area. I think
Oh,
Alan.
yeah, that would
you
help,
mentioned-
that would help elementary school quite a bit, having housing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I need a motion. We didn't want to, we can't, well, are we answering the question adequately with the impact of this allocation area on overlapping taxing units? We need to, correct? Okay, all right, so we'll do this one and then we'll back up for the other one, I apologize. Okay, so the impact of this allocation area on the overlapping taxing units, we're talking TIF, Clay, the county, solid waste district, Clay Township, and Warsaw Schools. The impact would be if we improve infrastructure and we were to be successful in a housing development, I would say that the impact would be an increase in tax revenue because of new residents to that area.
Should it be improve
That's
or
excellent.
expand?
Yes, yes, sounds good.
Well-
Improve or expand.
Is the increase in tax revenue dependent solely on expansion of housing, or if Louis Dreyfus continues to expand, again, I don't know what tax deferrals, but I mean, So the question is there only going to be an increase in the tax base if there's additional housing? Or will there be an additional taxes back to the county by way of the expansion of Lee Dreyfus?
Yes. Or by the expansion of any infrastructure. Because in those areas right now, I don't believe that they have what I would call great infrastructure or internet capabilities or roadways. So I think that if we were to do anything as a positive gain in that area, that would hopefully create the desire for someone to relocate there.
Okay, yeah. So I guess my comment is in agreement with your long-term impact, but I wouldn't limit the scope of that just to new homes.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So we could just say it would improve or expand tax revenue due to improvements? I'm getting a shaking of my head.
Yes, there's
over here.
no right or wrong answer.
Yes.
As long as
It's a
you
brilliant answer.
complete that task.
The task is what's important, and what
The
I've
task.
found is that every redevelopment commission that I've sat at, that have gone through this, everybody does it a little bit different, everybody kind of stumbles through it, but the important part of it is you're doing it and you're having the discussion and all
Yes.
that kind of stuff, so.
Okay.
If it feels a little awkward, it does.
It is.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I feel better about being awkward now. Okay, and then could that same, well, I guess, so is that your motion to include that? Okay, thank you. And then,
I'll second Dan's motion.
thank you. All right, and then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. All right, and then when we go back up to the other 30 West, I would say that we could use the exact same wordage. Because again, we're talking about creating the potential for people wanting to reside in that area, which means that they will become taxpayers. Okay,
And/or commercial development, right? Not just housing.
exactly. So any type of.
Yeah, so the answer remains
Progress,
valid for the,
yes. Okay,
do we need to make a motion to amend the
Sure, that would be great.
yes.
motion?
Yes, we do. Or actually, you can, who made the motion? Just a minute, I got to find my motion. Okay, since you made the motion, you can amend your motion.
Okay, so I just amended it that we'll use the third response, which is the same for the Dreyfus response. We would use the same response in the 30 West.
And your motion was seconded by? Seconded your motion.
Dan? I think it
Neither
was-
do I. I'm failing
I
miserably.
think Dan seconded,
I was thinking Dan did,
yeah,
but
I believe Dan did.
Okay, so we had a motion by Doug, seconded by Dan. Dan, do you agree with the amendment to the motion, the original motion? Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of the modified amended motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Go ahead and laugh. It's okay. All right. Okay, thank you, thank you. Now, at this point, is there any other business to come before the Redevelopment Commission? I would like to thank you all for attending. I really, really appreciate having a complete redevelopment commission. And thank you, press, for being here. Appreciate you being here, and I appreciate our audience. And again, thank you. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Katie, for your presentation. And thank you, Michelle, for your wonderful leading. And thanks, Mr. Attorney. All right, with that, I would accept a motion to adjourn. Oh, our next meeting is May 12th. Motion to adjourn? I would make the motion. Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by leaving.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, we couldn't keep him one way, but we did get him back in another. Oh,
This is held over from the October meeting. I need your signature on.
well, it's good to see you.
Good to be back.
Thank you.
She was was a bit of a roller coaster. but
Am I the one that's giving away the money?
A little smoother.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did it?
We've been seeing the country by similar years this month. Sorry,
I was adding numbers down on this that motion.
Oh, have you? Yeah. That whole road thing's gonna be really interesting. I guess we still. I don't have it.
It's my birthday, so.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Time's new. Yes. Yes. No, no, ma'am. Jackie, nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you as well. Because usually there's a choice.
David,
Yes, that's who I am.
yes.
So, sorry. I was like, oh no, she's here. She has questions. Since I've only covered the redevelopment commission a few times, every year they